Morning, glory, and grace, America, and a special welcome to my new affiliate in Martinsville, Virginia, AM 1370 WHEE, the talk of the town. I've been guiding you through the first week, and Fridays are special, usually the same lineup of guests, and we are usually looking back over the week in review. Always out of the box when we can get him is John Ellis, the founder and editor-in-chief of News Items. News Items is the Monday through Friday and once on the weekend newsletter that collects all the news that you need from all variety of sources on key topics from technology and science to, of course, the economy and China. And that's where we start. John, I'll be talking with Ben Domenech, Matt Continetti about Trump and the Middle East. And so I thought I would start with you with what I posted this morning, having read News Item, back-to-back big bulletins on China and rare earths that have really shaken the markets today. Unfold that for us.
Well, China has something close to a hammerlock on these rare earth materials and minerals that are crucial, essentially, to the modern economy. And the Trump administration had negotiated with the Chinese, making sure that the flow of these materials would continue. And suddenly, President Xi, 2 weeks before the meeting with President Trump in South Korea, slaps on these very tight export controls, which, is almost by itself disruptive to the global economy, and should they go forward, would be very disruptive. So it created, obviously, today the downturn in the market, and President Trump responded by saying that he would slap, huge tariffs on Chinese products in return, and that's where we stand right now.
Now, John, anything that you have read give us a clue to Xi Jinping's thinking here? Because is it an attempt to step on Trump's higher stature following the negotiation of the Middle East peace accord or ceasefire accord? Or is it simply trying to mess up the APEC meeting in South Korea?
I don't obviously don't know, but I'm reminded of former House Speaker Tip O'Neill's famous statement that all politics is local. And I think that President Xi is not without his hometown political difficulties, and anything that makes him look like he's standing up to or sticking it to the United States is probably helpful to him politically at home. Secondly, this is a very strong card that he has to play, and he will get concessions for sure, because the modern economy runs on these rare earths. So he's negotiating from a position of considerable strength, and in so doing, he, is helping himself at home.
I've got a lot of friends up in Minnesota cold. AM 1280 has been affiliate for 25 years. Duluth has been up there. They always tell me they have rare earths in Minnesota, but they can't get near them. Does the United States have a backdoor exit here if we simply preempt local rules and previous declarations of off limits and go after our own rare earth deposits?
Well, there are rare earths everywhere, all around the world. Argentina has, vast reserves of rare earths. The problem is the processing of them for industrial use, if you will, primarily takes place in China, and that's for a reason. The United States, had dominated the market up until, I don't know, the 1980s or something, and then the environmental damage from processing these rare earths was such that we were happy to see it go to China. Unfortunately, all these years later, China now has this dominant position. We can do and are doing in the state of Nevada, building out our own processing, if you will. But that's not something that's going to happen overnight. That's something that's going to happen over 5, 6, 10 years.
Let's hope we have the time. I want to move to the super app. I try and keep up on tech issues. News Items is usually what does it for me. But when I read about the super app, I confess to being confused. What is different about Sam Altman's super app and what I've got on my iPhone already, which is all these different apps?
So the difference is that on your iPhone you have, 200 or 20 or or 50 tiles, and you push the one for Expedia.com and you push the one for the Hugh Hewitt show, and etc. The Everything app that OpenAI is putting together comes in just one tile, and you tap on it and you say, I want to go to Hawaii for the weekend. It then takes you to Zillow, let's say, or not Zillow, Expedia, and you make your reservations there, but then you're not sure which hotel, so you ask Expedia to rank everything for you, and then you're not sure that Expedia has it right, so you ask OpenAI to tell you, what the public thinks about this hotel or that hotel. So it's all your apps: finance, travel, sports information, Hugh Hewitt connection, all there in one place, and you go to it, to a particular app, and you're able to ask OpenAI questions that are related to that. So it's the holy grail of the future iPhone. And Elon Musk bought Twitter in large measure so that he could create the Everything app that has eluded everyone else. With OpenAI now getting into it, it will be a contest between Sam Altman and Elon Musk as to who can build the better Everything app.
Well, it's I'm reminded of the Lord of the Rings. One ring to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. We'll find out whether or not we like one app or many. Now let's get to the debasement trade, because that's the first time that someone's explained to me why gold's over $4,000 an ounce. Do you want to expand on that? Because that is wild. I've had a gold advertiser on the program for 25 years. We've never been here before, John Ellis.
Well, gold at 4,000 has to be something that none of us anticipated. But there's real concern, obviously, about debt, not just U.S. debt, but debt all across the world. And there's therefore very, grave concern about currencies, the U.S. dollar, the Japanese yen, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's this debasement trade, so-called, which is, if you are, you invest in all these various things, but if you're concerned about the future of the US dollar, the Japanese yen, and so on and so forth, your rush to safety isn't what it, used to be, which was treasuries. It is now, or increasingly is now, the Bitcoin and gold and silver. And that's the trade that's now taking place. A lot of investment professionals are urging their clients to hedge their bets on currencies and on markets and say, look, just go to these commodities or go to the digital currency, Bitcoin.
Does this prefigure, or has a gold rise of this magnitude prefigured recession and market correction before?
I mean, generally speaking, when gold rises quickly, it's an indication that the financial system is in some distress. But we don't know. I mean, there's the move to Bitcoin began, years and years ago, and it's now perceived as an alternate store of value. Gold has always been perceived as a store of value. And does that mean, therefore, that people going into these products, if you will, does that mean that the other products are, ever more risky? It certainly indicates that they are risky, but does it, presage a recession or some kind of market meltdown? We have no idea.
Last question. Virginia, New Jersey. I talked to Jack Chitterelli yesterday, Winsome Sears the week before. Chitterelli thinks she's ahead. Winsome Sears thinks she's closing. What is your assessment of the polling, John Ellis?
I think it's a perfect case of the Democrats are trying to nationalize the race to make it a referendum on President Trump, because President Trump's numbers in New Jersey and Virginia are underwater. And the Republican candidates are trying to localize the race. They want it to be about the local issues in Virginia and New Jersey. And, going into the campaign, let's say mid-September, It was assumed that the race would be national, that the Democrat would be favored by anywhere from 3 to 7 points or whatever. But what's happened is that the race has become local, and so the Republicans are doing better and I think Citarelli has a chance of winning New Jersey, probably 50-50, maybe a little bit less. And the Virginia race is a lot closer than anybody thought.
Not over yet. Not over by a long shot. John Ellis, thank you. If you're not a subscriber to News Items, get smart every morning. First thing I read, first thing that about 50,000 really smart people read every day is News Items. Just look for News Items and John Ellis via Google or any search app. Joined by Eli Lake, who is a contributor to the Free Press, also the host of the Breaking History podcast, one of my favorite. I haven't got a new one for tomorrow yet, Eli. Are you working in the studio tonight? Because I was really hoping to have one for Saturday.
Well, it's coming out Wednesday, every other Wednesday.
Okay, I think they got to get you back in the salt mines more often. Here's your big history question. History has a lot of great partnerships. Marlborough and Prince Eugene, for example, Churchill and FDR. Where is the Trump-Netanyahu partnership going to rank?
Well, that is a tough question, and it's a great question. I think that at this point, especially since I do think that the hostages will come back and we will see a kind of end to the war, and hopefully Hamas will either begin disarming themselves, which is doubtful, but or others may disarm them for them, including a lot of these local Gazan families who are now fighting them openly. But my sense at this point is that it will rank right up there. I mean, if you add the Iran operation, which was entirely successful, the more information we get about it, the more it looks like their entire, nuclear program has pretty much been set back, and it's going to be very difficult to recreate it. And then you look at how Netanyahu was the bad cop by striking Doha last month, and then Trump becomes the good cop and actually gets the Qataris to do what I would have liked them to do right after October 7th, but basically put the real pressure along with Turkey on Hamas, and that is going to end the war. It's an extraordinary accomplishment. And it's amazing to think that it's not the only accomplishment from Trump in foreign policy. I haven't seen a run like this. I mean, I can't think until the end of the Cold War with Reagan, maybe. I mean, and George H.W. Bush.
People forget
really
Armenia and Azerbaijan, for example.
Yes.
It matters a lot to Armenia and Azerbaijan. But I wanted to test out on you my theory, and I've trotted out on Special Report last night, on Newsroom this morning. I'll talk to Brian Kilmeade this weekend. I have the same theory, which is the Trump-Netanyahu partnership goes back to 2020 when Soleimani landed in Iraq with murder in his heart towards American soldiers. I think Israel helped Trump target and kill Soleimani. Then we go to the Abraham Accords, which Netanyahu, of course, has to okay. Then we take a 4-year holiday from history with the incoherence of the Biden administration and sort of a return to the JCPOA madness. Then Trump comes back, and it's only been 9 months. And not only did we get Midnight Hammer, we also had that elaborate ruse before it, the 60 days of negotiation, the bombing on the 61st day. But then we also had Trump saying, and I don't know if it's true, recall your bombers, Bibi. Don't let the last strike go in. And there's an appearance of a partnership there that builds confidence among everyone that if Trump and Netanyahu say A is going to happen. So I think it's a 5-year process. What do you make of my assessment?
I think it might even go back further. I mean, Netanyahu, there's a video that in 2015, before Trump, or even earlier, where Trump is endorsing Netanyahu, kind of makes a celebrity video endorsing him. I know that Ron Dermer has kind of had a relationship with Trump. They both went to Wharton Business School, and Ron Dermer, of course, he is the Henry Kissinger to Bibi's Richard Nixon. So, in my view, I think it might go back even more. And I think that personality-wise, they're the same. They have very similar experiences. They've both been the victims of an aggressive politicized kind of lawfare strategy. So I think that there's a lot of empathy between them. And, they come from a very different kind of perspective. but they've landed on a sort of what I would call a kind of a more moderate version of populism. I mean, Trump does not go as far in terms of the excesses of populism as some kind of people in the broader movement. Bibi doesn't go as far as his more right-wing flank, but they represent so well this kind of global shift, especially in the democratic or the Western world, towards populism and how to be successful at it. And
hey, if I can, Eli, can you
Yeah.
unpack Ron Dermer a little bit for me? I've met him once
Sure.
in Cleveland. Jay Pod and I were having a cup of coffee, and he rolled through our hotel. I got a chance to chat with him a little bit, but he's sort of media shy. He lets Bibi take all the questions. He'll talk to people occasionally. Where does he get his diplomatic chops from? Because they are substantial.
Well, Ron Dermer, he comes from a pretty important political family in Miami, Florida. His father was the mayor of Miami-Dade. They're both have kind of been very active in the Florida Republican Party. In a formative part of Ron Dermer's life in the 1990s and early 2000s, he worked very closely with Natan Sharansky, the great Soviet dissident. Absolutely. And he helped write the book that Sharansky wrote on the importance of freedom and living in free societies that was so influential in the George W. Bush administration. And then over time, I mean, Ron Dermer is one of the most competent, intelligent kind of people who understands a room, is very good at talking to people, kind of doing the retail politics. That's very important, gets things done, keeps his confidences, kind of doesn't fall or the obvious mistakes in the moment that a lot of people make out of emotion. Very level-headed, and has been, I think, shown his loyalty to both Netanyahu and other people around him. And I think he's an enormous asset inside Israel. People recognize, even though he's the Minister of Strategic Affairs, but he is probably the most important person in the cabinet besides Bibi.
All right. Now, our last question, Haviv Reddy Gur, by the way, who served as a bodyguard occasionally for Natan Sharansky. Haviv and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, I didn't know
You
that.
listened to our last conversation, and you referred to him as, I don't want to mispronounce it, I can't say Hebrew. Gaon? Gaon. What is that?
Gaon is a Hebrew phrase to mean a great sage, which is, just a very wise man who kind of understands the Talmud and the Torah. For me, I learn so much every time I listen to Haviv Reddy Gur. And I think I don't really know of anybody right now in the English language who can kind of provide a woven tapestry of both Israeli history, Jewish history, world history, and he knows a lot about American history. I've talked to him offline about it too. And he can just kind of put it all together. Every time he talks, it feels like I'm in a high-level graduate seminar, but he also is able to sort of communicate so well to people who are not specialists.
Well, he's a lot like you, and Barry Weiss doesn't need my suggestions for the Free Press, but if they need another podcast, Eli Lake and Haviv Reddy Gur shooting the breeze about
that is a
history.
great idea.
Well,
Great idea.
not about Israel. Put that off on the side. But let's talk today about the Algerian Civil War or something that you've done a breaking. Yeah, it would. I would love that. And congratulations, by the way. I think you're a CBS employee now, but I'm glad.
Yes.
I just want more breaking histories. All right, so tell more of them, one a week.
The next
thank
one's
you
going
much,
to be really
Eli.
good. You'll like it. Thank you.
Oh, what's it about?
It's called London Calling, and it's about how the nation that invented free speech has become a censor's paradise.
Oh, we need that, and we need it to travel throughout Great Britain because you are absolutely ahead of the game. It's a nightmare what's going on there, and J.D. Vance was the first to call it. And now the fire trucks are arriving, and hopefully Eli Lakes is one of the Breaking History podcasts. You can get it anywhere, and you ought to subscribe to the Free Press and read what Eli writes there. Thank you, Eli Lake. Follow him on X at Eli Lake. Matt Continetti is not here. Now, what that means is he's probably abroad. He has not been on the commentary podcast yesterday or the day before or today. So I assume he is traveling and that somehow we missed a signal. Good news is I have lots to tell you about. I first get to renew my appeal to Hamilton, the Hamilton School at the University of Florida, which is, hey, you folks down in Florida, if you know anyone over at the University of Florida, Senator Sass is gone now, so I don't know anyone. Tell him I want to teach at the Hamilton School. I heard about it. on the commentary podcast, and then I went over and looked it up, and I said to myself, this is fabulous. I'd already started looking around for an East Coast base of operations to teach. I've been teaching con law at Chapman University since 1995. I'm not going to leave, but I would like to do a visitorship or a look-see visitorship somewhere. And High Point Law School is a possibility. Hamilton School, though, in Gainesville, Florida. Kind of fun to live in the free state of Florida. I don't know what Gainesville like. Do they have football at Florida? I'm not sure. I'm from Ohio, and so I know Urban left there after I think they were Division II when Urban Meyer was there. But I really, nevertheless, would love to be in touch with someone from the Hamilton School. Sounds like it's a fabulous experiment. Let me begin the segment by telling you about Webroot, one of our great sponsors, webroot.com/Hewitt. And they have a new pitch going on for October that this is the month normally of haunted houses and horror movies, but the real horror is cyber horror. When cyber criminals get into your machines, get into your life, well, there's a new trick tech scam out there as well, where you're probably getting them once a day and you may or may not know that. Don't touch them. This Cyber Scaries month, you really do need Webroot, whether it's Webroot Total Protection or Webroot Essentials. The all-in-one product for individuals covers one identity and 5 devices. For family, it covers up to 10 devices and 10 identities. Lightning-fast antivirus protection, identity theft protection, dark web monitoring, secure VPN, unlimited cloud backup. Webroot Total Protection helps defend every part of your digital life. And right now, when you go to www.webroot.com/Hewitt, you'll get half off. That's webroot.com/Hewitt. But it's for a limited time. It's their October promotion. Don't let it get away from you. Now, I've been doing a lot of Fox yesterday. I was on Special Report with Brett, and it was the day of the big announcement. So, of course, we got asked about the deal. And you're going to hear me repeat myself this morning and probably Sunday when I'm on with Brian as well. But here is cut number 4 last night on Special Report.
You put this in perspective.
Well, the perspective, Brett, and good evening to everyone, is that it's historic and will be in every history written about the Middle East for the next 100 or many years. If it comes off on Tuesday, it'll be VI Day, Victory Over Iran Day. And it goes back not just to Operation Midnight Hammer when President Trump sent the B-2s to obliterate the Iranian nuclear program. It goes back to when he actually had Soleimani taken out, to the Abraham Accords in 2020, and importantly, to when, after the Iranian nuclear sites had been obliterated, President Trump told Israel to pull back its bombers, and Prime Minister Netanyahu went along with that, thus establishing the credibility with the Gulf states that President Trump could, in fact, deliver on all the details of this peace agreement. So I'm looking forward to Tuesday for the families, for the hostages, but also for the people of Gaza who need the boot of Iran and Hamas off of their neck. Now, we also got a chance to talk about it this morning with Dana Perino on America's Newsroom, cut number 3.
And Hugh Hewitt joins us now, Fox News contributor. Great to have you with us. I just want to show everybody the cover of the Jerusalem Post today. It's a profile of President Trump, but in it are those pictures of the hostages that were taken. And, he might not have gotten the Nobel Prize, but the people of Israel, they know what it took to get here today. And one more thing for you, Hugh. Noah Rothman wrote this in National Review. We are a long way from October 6th. Hamas has not been scattered to the winds, but it lost the war it started on October 7th. The recognition of
right there, we'll come back and finish it. All right, I want to make sure I'm able to finish it, but I also got to take my relief factor, really. Because I went out today, and a hamstring went wild. And a hamstring on my left leg is not fun. So I came up GIMP and gimped home and immediately took one package. I'm taking a second package right now because that's not good, but Relief Factor can fix it. That's just inflammation of the hamstring, and it's not, an NFL D-back or anything like that. It's just I was going too far, too fast, too often. So a few extra packages of Relief Factor. Not going to take tomorrow off if I can all do it, Sunday maybe. But I urge you, try Relief Factor if that happens to you. 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or head over to their website and find the starter pack for $19.95 at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com. If you're on the West Coast, you're on your lunch hour. It only takes 20 minutes to call Consumer Cellular and save a lot of money. A lot of money. Now, you might not have your phone bill with you, but maybe you do. Maybe you can look it up online, or if you're at home, you might want to go get it out and call 1-800-411-4454. Because when you call Consumer Cellular, you're going to find out you can save a lot of money and get the same service that you have with your current cell phone plan. Big Cell does not have anything over Startup Cell. Consumer Cellular is fabulous. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh if you want like an overview of everything. Or you can simply call 1-800-411-4454. Whether you call or go online, remember my code, and you'll be asked for a code, is Hugh25. That saves you $5 a month off of your first 5 monthly invoices. That's in addition to the money you're going to save. Now, the key demo, the target market for Consumer Cellular are adults 50 and over. Right? That's redundant, 50 and over. Why? Because you don't use the kind of data that the youngs do. You're not downloading games, you're not watching movies, you're not endlessly on your phone with your friends, you actually still watch TV. And that means you should not be paying for unlimited data unless you're doing it with the Consumer Cellular plan, which is very, very good. If you're a 58 plus, you can get 2 lines of unlimited data for $60 a month. Hard to beat. I don't know if it can be beat. It's only $30 per line. Again, unlimited data. It's an easy way to better manage your cost of living, cut down on your essential expenses. Don't wait. Get real savings without sacrifice. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh, 1-800-411-4454. My code's Hugh25. And you'll be talking with one press of the button to a U.S.-based customer service rep. And they're good. It takes less than 20 minutes to switch. Give it a shot. I want to go back to my conversation with Dana Perino this morning on America's Newsroom. Can we roll that?
A piece of paper is what will beget a genuine and durable peace. As this all takes shape, let's get your thoughts this morning, Hugh.
Well, good morning, Dana. I think that Noah's exactly right. What matters is what happens. President Trump clearly deserved the Nobel Prize. The Norwegian Eurocrats who run that missed a chance to help cement the deal. That's the tragic part. Trump doesn't need any more prizes. He got a lot. But they missed an opportunity to continue the momentum to keep the peace in Gaza. So to those Eurocrats, they say, shame on you. Ms. Machado, who won it, has got a lot of courage, but she can't advance peace in the Middle East right now, and they could have helped that process along. The other thing I would say, the Nobel Prize is a diagnostic tool. If anyone is relieved or celebrating that Trump didn't get it, or they're talking about deadlines, that means they have TDS and they ought to get help. Because if they're more worried about Donald Trump not getting honored than they are about peace actually arriving in Gaza, they're very unbalanced, and they have to go and look in a mirror and check what their priorities are. I'm glad Steve is reporting that it's holding. I read all Israeli media this morning that I could in English language, and it does look very, very good. But Prime Minister Netanyahu, as he said with Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the pressure is now on Hamas to come through. There are fanatics in that group that may want to destroy this deal. So we got to keep our fingers crossed and our prayers continuing that it actually holds and the hostages come home on Monday.
Well, Hugh, just on Hamas, they have essentially handed over, or they're going to hand over all of their leverage and have essentially conceded defeat. But how do we make sure that they don't try this all over again, that we can trust that this will be a long-lasting peace?
Phase 2, great question. Phase 2 is supposed to include the destruction of the tunnels, the turnover of the Hamas weaponry, the arrival of a third-party oversight army or soldiery. All of that is to come, and that is designed to make sure that Hamas does not return. Now, the big news is VI Day comes on Monday or Tuesday, victory over Iran. And that means Iran has been defeated on every front that they attempted to encircle Israel with. decisively, strategically defeated. If they can't resupply Hamas, no one else is going to do that. No one in the region wants them to be back to the monstrous organization they were. No one's going to rebuild Hezbollah. The Assad regime is gone. It's been a very tough 2 years for Israel, but at the end of this nightmare, they are so much more secure and much more feared, not just because of their victories, but also because they've got President Trump, Secretary Rubio, and his team in power in the White House.
And President Trump has been thinking about that future. This is him at the cabinet meeting that he called yesterday.
They know exactly what we're doing. We're going to create something where people can live. You can't live right now in Gaza. The place is it's a horrible situation. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So yeah, we're going to create better conditions for people.
Maybe just a moment, Hugh, from you about President Trump at this point, because he bet on America. He didn't show daylight between the United States and Israel. He was focused on that, but he did, as Netanyahu, as Witkoff said, made some pretty tough decisions, including that apology to Qatar for the attack about a month ago.
You're right, Dana. The tentative piece that we have goes back 5 years to when Trump first took out Soleimani in January of 2020. Then he did the Abraham Accords. As soon as he got back in January 2025, he closed the distance that had opened up between Biden and the Harris administration and Israel to zero. He backed their war. He gave Iran 60 days to negotiate in the spring. On day 61, Israel struck Iran with our support. Then Operation Midnight Hammer happened. But I want our listeners to remember, then the president restrained Israel and asked them not to do the final bombing run during that war with Iran, the 12-day war. He stood aside when they went into Gaza City, did not object to the attack on Qatar, but then he's asked for a lot from the prime minister in the next couple of weeks, which the prime minister gave. That's what happens when you have trust, experience, and competence in the White House, as Donald Trump has been demonstrating. So it's really been a masterful... I stand by that. I also want to stand by the American Exploration and Production Council, a great sponsor of our show, axpc.org. I keep sending people to axpc.org because in the negotiations that will follow the reopening of the government, the GOP is not going to negotiate until it reopens. The Democrats want A, B, and C. Do you know what the Republicans should want? Permit reform. And exactly what they should want is laid out at axpc.org. Permitting reform will benefit every American. It will allow us to get additional oil and natural gas out of the ground, to use pipelines to get it to where it needs to be, either for use or export. The stakes could not be higher. The economy and energy dominance of the United States and the world depend upon it. We need permitting reform. We need axpc.org's plan. So please go to axpc.org. That's axpc.org. And find out what the Republicans ought to be playing for in the negotiations ahead after the government reopens and the Democrats blink. In last night's Virginia gubernatorial debate, Winsome Sears scored a knockout over Abigail Spanberger, who first froze, and then Winsome Sears pummeled her. I don't know how anyone votes for Spanberger. Let's listen to two exchanges, 1 and 2, please, Harley.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. I didn't hear an answer there on the endorsement issue, so I want to just make sure. Will you continue to endorse Jay Jones to be the next Attorney General of Virginia? And were you aware of these text messages before they released? You have 30 seconds.
In fact, it appears that it was those who released the text messages and held them for years. So the public was unaware who had knowledge of these text messages for many hours.
What did you do about it?
I learned of these text messages the day that they came out, and I denounced them as soon as I learned of them.
She denounces murder.
And importantly, at this point, as we move forward, the voters now have this information that was withheld for them.
You're running to
presumably for
Ms.
political reasons. But the voters now have the information, and it is up to voters to make an individual choice based on this information.
Ms. Spanberger, I understand what you're saying about the voters, but for you yourself, do you still continue to endorse Jay Jones? 15 seconds, yes or no?
We are all running our individual races. I believe my opponent has said that about her lieutenant governor nominee. And it's up to every person to make their own decision. I am running my race to serve Virginia, and that is what I intend to do.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger. We just want to clarify, what you're saying is that as of now, you still endorse Jay Jones as Attorney General.
I'm saying as of now, it's up to every voter to make their own individual decision. I am running for governor. I am accountable for the words that I say, for the acts that I take, for the policies that I have put out.
Thank you.
I am responsible for the policies I put out and the work I will endeavor to do tirelessly for the people of Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Spanberger.
Well, I think as everybody knows, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian before I'm a Republican, and I'm required to forgive people. And it's hard sometimes when somebody has abused you, etc., but it's something you must do, because not to forgive is almost like, as someone said, you drink poison thinking that it's going to affect the other person. And I want to live a decent life, and I don't want to not have peace in my life. And so as I've said before, I would not say that. So that's why I'm wondering why my opponent won't say, beyond it's abhorrent and disgusting, why she won't say it is not okay and that he must leave the race, because Jay Jones advocated the murder, Abigail, the murder of a man, a former speaker, as well as his children who were 2 and 5 years old. You have little girls. What would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail.
She had nothing to say. I don't know how anyone votes for Spanberger. She'll destroy public education in Virginia worse than it already is. Winsome Sears is your choice. I cannot wait to vote for her next week. Ben Domenech is in the house. He is the host of the Big Ben podcast. He's editor-at-large for The Spectator. He is also a Fox News contributor, and he is a weekly guest as we look over, and boy, this was a week. Ben, I'm going to go in reverse order of importance of the story.
Okay.
It matters who wins in New Jersey and in Virginia, but I actually want to start by asking about Maria Bartiromo, because I enjoyed your interview so much. She's pretty fabulous as a guest. I don't know her. But
well, it's funny. I mean, I don't mean to, age anything, but, I feel like I have been watching her for a very long time, and I've never really seen a conversation with her that was all that lengthy. And so I specifically asked for, when I was going up to New York to record the show, to get a chance to talk to her, and I was happy that she was generous with her time, especially after doing a show for 3 hours. And it was just, I thought it was just an interesting conversation, because it's one of those roles that's pretty unique within the business, and to hear, how somebody approaches it, I think is an insight that I wanted to have myself, and it shows why she's such a pro.
Well, I did morning drive for 9 years, almost 10 years, which means getting up at 3:45. And on the West Coast, it meant getting up at 2 a.m. And her discipline is like iron discipline. And
I know.
She has to prep all the markets. So it's actually harder than political and news talk, because she's doing you can't be wrong. You can't even be off a little bit.
You're not shading an opinion and that kind of thing, where it's like, oh, well, it's close enough. And so it's one of these things where, she has to be, very, very disciplined on it. And while, I don't know about you, Hugh, but, I get up early enough. The fact is that 4:30 or 5, I'm fine, but 2 is like, that's
no. Well, 10 years is all you can do it, and it's dog years. But she's been doing it forever, and it's a fine conversation. That's an ad for the Big Ben podcast. Go and get it.
Thank you.
Let's now talk about our state, Ben. I get back next week. I'm going to go down and vote in person for Winsome Sears and Jason Miyares, and I'm looking forward to it. But I don't think I've seen anyone other than Joe Biden have a bad as debate as Spanberger had last night. She utterly froze.
It's funny, because I was taking care of the putting the kids to bed, and so I came in about halfway through the debate, planning to obviously rewind and watch the beginning. And I came in right as she was dealing with the questions about school-related policy. And I immediately was like, oh, my gosh, she's acting like a robot. It's incredible. And then, of course, I see the clips from before, and I go back and I watch the whole thing. It was just an absolutely terrible performance. I don't know that it's going to matter at this point. I mean, I hope that it does, because I think that any voter who tunes in cannot help but come away and say, who is this person? Were they kind of built in a lab? And there was just so much weird body language there and everything else. Look, I am a fan, obviously, especially, of Winsome and of the Attorney General, and I look forward to, seeing how this thing turns out. And it certainly has been closing in the last couple of weeks. You cannot, say that the narrative around this whole thing has not changed and changed dramatically. And you see it in the local ads, by the way, that are going up during sporting events and the like, which you may not be seeing currently. But
no, I'm not, but I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, but it has absolutely shifted, and you can tell. And it's one of these things where, I think that they're scrambling in part because she had run a campaign that was very much based on a basement level, approach where she was not interacting with people, normal people in a way. And I have to say, shout out to the moderators in that, because they were really kind of saying, wait a minute, you didn't answer the question. Here's the question again, and they kept putting it to her. And so I hope that people tuned in. I hope that they take away the same thing that I did, which is just that this is not someone who you want as the next governor. And again, I would just reiterate, if you are not calling on Jay Jones to resign from this situation, to step down from being in this race at this moment, my assumption is that on some level, you think that what he said was acceptable. You can say that, well, I'm happy that he apologized, he was wrong to do it, something like that. But still, this should be definitively unacceptable for anyone seeking public office, especially as a leading law enforcement officer, in that role as Attorney General in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I think that that's just a slam dunk argument, and I hope that it makes a difference in that AG race.
And I was very pleased when Ro Khanna yesterday, who comes on the program at a fairly regular interview, said it's disqualifying. That's all a Democrat needs to say, is it's disqualifying.
Yeah,
they don't have to pound him.
And if you could say that, then I can respect you. If you can't say that, then on some level you're saying there is some way that I can squeeze my brain into thinking that this is still acceptable because they have the right letter after their name. And that's
correct.
That's absurd.
All right, now let's go up to Jersey. I had Jack Chitterelli on yesterday. He's got the body language of a winner. Now, that is an odd thing to say in politics, but I've been doing this long enough. He's at least thinking he's going to win right now. Doesn't mean you're always going to win, but you can tell when someone's defeated and they're just putting in the work. He thinks he's going to win, Ben. What do you think?
What I think is that things are so strange in New Jersey right now that the New York Giants are exciting for the first time in about 25 years. I can't remember them being exciting before. You watch. But I'm just like, stranger things have happened. I do think, though, that there's such a built-in advantage, especially in the mail-in, that he is going to have to climb, a pretty steep height to get there. But there seems to be a lot of positivity, and I'm wondering whether there's going to be some late closing activity that benefits him based on some of the things that are happening in the broader world. And in the sense that that race, I think, has more. I think the race in Virginia has more to do with local issues. The race in New Jersey, I think, might have more to do with national and international issues. And that's something that could play to his advantage, just given the direction that things are going.
Well, this is one where the media really disappoints me because I'm a civilian. I don't know what her record at Annapolis is, but my brother-in-law and my son-in-law are Navy grads, and I know they don't have the same honor code as West Point, but the idea that she didn't walk in solidarity with her classmates, that's nonsense. And had it been a Republican, it would have been the lead story on national network night after night, 100%. Demanding that she release it.
100%, and that's what I've been told by everyone who I know. And as you know, I have multiple family members and friends who are also Naval Academy and who also know the way that this stuff works and that kind of thing. And so, look, I think that this is something where there should be some optimism there, but it should be tempered by the reality of the fact that there is just a machine there that you're up against that doesn't exist in Virginia, by the way, other than kind of the tacit machine of the bureaucracy, but it definitely exists there, and that's something that you always have to include in this, in the same way that you include it as a factor in states like Nevada and other.
Let's get a quick word in about Mamdani. I did a big town hall with my friends Joe Piscopo, Mike Gallagher, and some local folks this week, and I stunned them by saying if I were in New York, I'd vote for Andrew Cuomo Curtis can't win. I've known him forever. He's a colleague, but he can't win. And Mamdani is an anti-Semite communist. I cannot be indifferent to the world's greatest city getting completely convulsed.
Yeah.
Do you think Republicans should vote for Mamdani? I mean, for Cuomo?
I think that this is a situation. It's what is it? Vote for the crook? No, it's one of these situations that is completely unenviable. But at the same time, I have not been one to rejoice on the national scale, as some have, about the plight that New York City is putting.
Oh, no.
And I think that is something that you should absolutely resist. That temptation of, well, let them, get it good and hard is just not something that I think is healthy, especially for America's most prominent city. And so, look, there's been obviously significant movement since Eric Adams dropped out of the race, but I also think that, this is something where there might just be such a low level of turnout in this situation that they are able to exploit it. And certainly, and this is my piece in the latest edition of The Spectator that goes into this, what you saw is a easily trackable turn on a dime, where you went from all of these skeptical establishment media institutions raising the questions about Mamdani that are very obvious, to basically the entirety of Condé Nast deciding that they were going to give him a glow up, put him on the cover of Vanity Fair, give him a profile in Bon Appetit. What's it like to eat food with your hands? That's literally part of the headline. And it's like they just decided overnight, we're going to turn this guy into a hero. The New Yorker had raised completely viable, questions about him prior to it, and then they did a profile of him, like the softest profile about him going to the U.S. Open and just taking a bunch of pictures with people, and depicting him as an Instagram star as if he doesn't have any actual ideology underneath it.
He's an anti-Semite communist, and New York does not deserve what they're going to get. Earlier today, Senator Marino suggested the nuclear option, blow up the filibuster. Terrible idea, really bad idea. They should just sit there and wait for the military. I can't believe they're going to cost. There are 100,000 E1s and E2s who make less than $2,500 a month. So their $1,200 that they're due next week matters a lot. $1,200. I can't believe the Democrats are going to do this, but the Republicans ought not to break the rules of the Senate to stop the Democrats from blowing themselves up. What do you think?
I completely agree. I also think that they should. I think that this is a situation where they are missing an opportunity to really put the screws in terms of pushing forward, on forcing repeated votes. I think that they should be in town. I don't like the fact that they're leaving. That we've seen them, leaving town. I think they should force them to be here, and I think that the fact that they are, doing this is something that essentially is translating nationally into a narrative of not caring about it. But to me, the real thing that is a problem here is that I don't think that the people who are actually, arguing this from the right side of the equation are all that confident or united in the front that they're projecting. And I think that that's a sign of weakness that is being exploited to a certain degree by the people who, have a much friendlier assumption on the part of the, media complex. And that means that, you have to have more confidence in advancing your case. I'm not seeing that currently, and I don't entirely understand why, because I feel like they have the much better of the argument in almost every sort of indication that we have about this. And yet I don't see them leaning into it to the degree that I think that they ought to be. I mean,
well, they brought out J.D. Vance once, and he leveled everyone. They put him at the White House podium once. I've had on 6 or 7 senators. They all have it down. But they really need the White House podium, and they really need the vice president to be in there laying down the heavy fire on how stupid this is.
They should be doing that. They should be doing that every single day. And
I agree.
It's just one of the things that I feel like is happening here is that there's just the mistake that I think is made quite often is, we've said our piece and now we're walking away. No, when you do that, you abandon the field and you allow other people to fill it with their narrative about what's actually going on. You need to be in the field every day on your argument, and you need to be advancing it. And I think that that's not happening currently. I'm not sure why it is, because I think that they have, again, I think they have the better of the argument. And I know, if I was still, it's been a long time since I've been on Capitol Hill, but if I was still there, I know the kind of push that I would be making to advance that argument as constantly as possible, and to put them in the position of defending the fact that they are going to be denying these kind of payments to people who absolutely deserve them unquestionably. And
cannot quit. The military kids don't have an option.
Quit.
They cannot not report for duty. I've spent a lot of time on Special Report last night, America's Newsroom. I'll be on with Brian Kilmeade Sunday night. I have the same theory on when VI Day, Victory Over Iran Day, really got started, which is when they killed Soleimani. I think it's the bow on it when the hostages get out on Monday or Tuesday. But what's your assessment of it really does go back to Obama and the JCPOA. How did we get there from the depth of despair when we signed the JCPOA?
Well, I think that, the thing to understand in this moment is we have seen the Israelis really change the entire game within the Middle East in the last 2 years. You can go down the list, and I'm sure you probably have with your listeners, of everything that they were able to achieve, much of which was deemed impossible in the past in terms of the decimation of many of their foes, the cutting off of all the different lines of connection that we've seen, and really, creating a new dynamic there. That's all, from my perspective, to the good. We've seen, the benefits of that. And I think that we also had this rare opening, which was essential to this process of getting, Netanyahu to come over after the decisions that were made regarding Qatar in a way that I think would not have been possible for that card to play absent that decision on their part and Trump's reaction to it. At the same time, I think that we have to be very honest about the degree to which, Hugh, that this argument has shifted within the West, and that has crept into, often fueled by paid propaganda, unfortunately, the next generation of Americans. And we see this consistently in poll after poll. What we see is that there is a majority of support among Republicans and independents for Israel generally. You can ask the question different ways, and you'll get different percentages, but there is a majority support there. Where that decreases and where it falls off a cliff is as you get younger and younger in the demo. And so what you look at is a situation where if you are under the age of 45, the likelihood that you are going to take the opposite side on this is actually increasing. And when I say the opposite side, I mean it. There are poll numbers that have been out there from reputable places, including the Harvard-Harris poll, some of the latest Pew numbers. There's also other ones that are out there as well that show, a significant number of people who are, yes, they are young, but it's 29 and under that you're looking at in some cases that have as much as a third opposing Israel or viewing them as the aggressor in this situation. And I think that we have to understand this is a danger to this argument that I think a lot of people have rested on their laurels and assumed was not going to be a problem for them in the long term, basing it on the respect that Christians in America have paid toward the nation state of Israel over the years. And I don't think that that's something that is being fundamentally supported at this moment.
Well, our friend John Podhoretz says victory is the greatest bringer of support. And I think he's right.
I think he is right about that. Yeah. But I think that there is an absence of argument in front of the younger generation of people, and I would include both Gen Z and millennials in that number, and that is a significant portion of the American electorate. The millennials are a larger generation than the baby boomers. They need to be ministered to on this, and I do not think they are receiving the right messengers. And the absence of Charlie Kirk from the field on this is going to, I think, prove significant if there are not changes.
I was about to bring up Charlie and Israel. Now, into that void, there come young people like you and Guy and Mary Catherine Ham and Ben Shapiro, but there's another generation missing. How important, and I mean really, how important is it that Barry Weiss is running CBS News?
If you look on the one hand, I will say it is of huge significance. It is a representation, I think, of the long overdue fact that these institutions were no longer catering to even the middle of America. They weren't even catering to lean right. It's more like you've lost the plot completely And the fact that it renders people insane to see her celebrating this new deal wearing a CBS Sunday Morning hat is something that gives me great joy. But at the same time, I think it's still about proof in the pudding, and you got to do it. And it's a hard job to do. I mean, when I was at CBS for 4 years, Hugh, you moved a desk, and it was like, well, what would Walter Cronkite think of that? You know, and it's just one of these situations where the place is so ossified that it really needs something to upend it. I think that's what she's supposed to do. I think she's been given the authority to do it, obviously, by this new team that owns it, and I think it could prove to be very significant, but it has to prove that way. And part of the problem here...
And Ben, I got a question for you. You've been around news organizations. Ossified is the right term. There are a lot of contracts that you'll have to eat, but if you want to change something, you have to go fast and you have to break things, and you get less than a year. We watched what happened to Chris over at CNN. He took too long. He got rid of Don Lemon. He was trying to be gentle. You can't be gentle if you want to change the culture of a place. No. You've got to smash it. Do you agree with that?
And I think she understands that. And I think that she understands that, having lived through the experience that she did. I don't know her that well. I know her as a colleague, but I would just say this is an opportunity that is of significant import for the country. It's not just about one news organization. It's about reframing the way that we view media in this country. And I think that it redefines the Overton window if it is done well and done expertly, but it's going to require manpower to do it. And I hope that she has the right people. She's been a good picker of people. A lot of them are people who, let's just say this, she hired more than half of a dozen of my former interns. And so I have confidence in her capability when it comes to picking people.
Well, I do believe if you know people who are working for her, like Douglas Murray and Eli Lake and people like that, I just think she obviously has antenna for talent. So, Ben, I want to finish with the Nobel Prize. It's silly, but it's also a diagnostic tool. If people are happy that Donald Trump didn't get the Nobel Prize, or they're citing the deadlines, what the Norwegian bureaucrats didn't even do that. If they're happy that he didn't get it, isn't that a sign of TDS?
Oh, totally, 100%. And also, it's one of these things where, I mean, come on, you had after this deal was announced, you had. So many different people coming out who said, hey, I may have hated everything else, but this is, something that is truly historic. At the same time, it's not something that I think, even if he had gotten it, I think that people would have just found ways to besmirch it. And ultimately, it's the historical record that matters. And, that's one of the reasons why it's one of the most laughable aspects of the Obama presidency in retrospect. So, look,
yes.
Yes. I appreciate why it's happened the way that it has. But look, when the John Meachams of the world are saying, hey, you got to hand it to him, then, that I think is enough.
End of the case.
Yeah,
Ben Domenech, have a great weekend. Follow him at X at B Domenech. He is over at The Spectator. And make sure you listen to the Big Ben podcast, especially the interview with Maria Bartiromo this week. Thank you, Ben. Want to remind everyone talking about Israel that over at HughHewitt.com at the top, you'll see the banner for the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, IFCJ. They really need to rebuild now. They really need your help, my help, the help of everyone who is listening. It's a tax-deductible donation. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. They do so much good work with the people who've lost everything, who've been out of their jobs on reserve duty 5, 6, 7 times over 2 years. Please help Israel through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, and you'll find the banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. I called my friends at AndrewandTodd.com yesterday, Andrew Del Rey, sent him a text before I went on, special report. I wanted to confirm that, in fact, if you buy a residential property, you pay less than if you buy an investment property for the loan, for the interest rate. Andrew confirmed it. Then I went on special report, got asked about Letitia James. Here's what I said very quickly to Brett.
10 seconds here, Hugh.
If you buy an investment property and you tell your lender that it's a second home, you have defrauded the mortgage lender and you have committed a crime and a false statement act. If that happened, she's going to be tried and found guilty. It is that simple. You screw the lender if you tell them you're buying a residential property and it's an investment property. It's illegal everywhere, gets prosecuted dozens of times a year. We will see whether or not she did that. Time for me to take a second relief factor. I told you in hour number one, if you were listening, I came up lame today on my trundle, which is very rare. Never have hamstring problems. So whenever I do, I don't take one a day. I take 2 a day. So here's the second dose. And the reason is Saturday mornings is normally my long one. Saturday mornings can be up to 10 miles, and I haven't done more than 10 since last year, but I wanted to do 10 tomorrow. I got a lot lined up to listen to. I was eager to do it. Weather is perfect for it. However, you don't aggravate an injury, so we'll see whether or not that was a passing deal, and we'll see whether or not relief factor can kick in on double the strength right away. I really do encourage you, if you are any kind of an exercise person, gym, swimming, running, trundling, biking, whatever it is, you can sometimes get those minor aches and pains where you say, ouch, what was that? And then you kind of limp along a little bit, put the heating pad on it, double up on the relief factor. Hopefully I'm feeling fine. I'll tell you about it on Monday, one way or the other. But I believe in the product. It's the only supplement I've taken for more than 20 years. It's the only supplement I have taken for a dozen years in a row. I urge you to try it. Call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or call 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to their website and find the starter pack for $19.95 at relieffactor.com. Relieffactor.com. That's less than $1 a day, relieffactor.com. Now, I want to focus for a moment on the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. It's a big weekend. It's big Shabbos for all of our Jewish friends and their tents. There are 20 live and 28 sets of remains of dead hostages that are supposed to be back by Monday, and everybody who prays is praying that that happens and that peace comes to Gaza and the ceasefire takes hold. But the damage done to Israel by the 2 years of war is extraordinary, and the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews doing everything they can to help rebuild with your help. Now, you can call them at 800-492-1717, 800-492-1717, or you can find the IFCJ banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. But Yael Eckstein spoke with my colleague Mike Gallagher about what it is they are doing.
For 2 years, this is what we've been praying for. We've been praying to get our people back who were kidnapped from their beds and tortured for 2 years by Hamas. And I've been in touch with the families of the hostages, and the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews is there to support them. You know, imagining these hostages walking out of the tunnels after 2 years, and it's all because of President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
So what we can do is help those who help those in need. And it's soup kitchens, it's shelter for the people who lost their shelter, but a lot of it is assistance for people who lost their businesses. Because the IDF, it's a conscript army, everyone serves except the ultra-Orthodox. They do their 2 or 3 years, and then they're on reserve duty for 20, and nobody before has ever had to go back 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 times to do the long war that Israel is on the verge of winning with victory over Iran in Gaza. But they're going to come back to a different country. They're going to come back to very straitened circumstances. And the International Federation of Christians and Jews helps those who need it the most. Please be as generous as possible. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. I want to give one more bit from Special Report last night. We were talking about the shutdown. Brett asked me, and I responded, cut number 5.
I'm going to leave it here, Hugh, but President Trump does talk about all of the peace agreements he's done, and this would be the biggest. He's obviously hoping for Ukraine and Russia, but the Nobel Peace Prize in 2009, the Norwegian Nobel Committee decided the Nobel Peace Prize to be awarded to President Barack Obama for his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples. The committee has attached special importance to Obama's vision and work for a world without nuclear weapons. Bibi Netanyahu just tweeted out, "Give Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. He deserves it." Prizes here or there. We've heard the president talk about it, but now there is a long list.
Well, he should get it. It should be in the Roosevelt Room right next to the one that Teddy Roosevelt got for solving the Sino-Japanese War years and years ago, Russian-Japanese War years and years ago. However, the Eurocrats will have to eat a lot of crow before they do that. If they And guess what? They didn't. They didn't. It's Friday. That means the Friday football forecast with Doug Lesmarie. He's the Doug in the Bill and Doug Show. OSU, which you can find at Substack, where it's growing wildly. Doug, before we get to the forecast, why are you growing so fast? To what do you attribute your success on Substack?
Crazy Ohio State fans, God bless them. College football is the second most popular sport in this country. The NFL is obviously number one, but college football, Hugh, just continues to expand. It kind of keeps its regional focus, but is growing nationally. We're just along for the ride.
Well, I think you and Landis have also worked out a very nice rhythm. I've never worked with a partner in radio except Dwayne, who comes in and out occasionally. And it really requires a certain kind of chemistry, and you guys have had it, so my hat's off to you. What are we looking forward to? I've got one game, of course, I'm looking forward to, but what are we looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, so college football, let's go to Eugene, Oregon, Hugh. Number 3, Oregon. Number 7, Indiana. This is a huge Big Ten game. No Penn State, no Michigan, no Ohio State, but yet you have a top 10 matchup in the Big Ten. It's only the 4th time by my count in Indiana's history that it's been involved in a game where both teams were in the top 10. 2 of them were last year. So they're 0-3 in those games. Real Indiana opportunity here, though. 3:30, like 2 great coaches in Dan Lanning at Oregon and Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. They'll both talk the talk, but they also walk the walk, and they have dominated teams this year. A couple scores, Hugh. Indiana has won by scores of 56-9, 73-0, and they beat Illinois 63-10. Oregon has won by scores of 59-13, 41-7, and they beat Oklahoma State 69-3. I think this is going to be a great game.
Do either of these teams have defensive coordinators? Do they have defenses?
You don't need them. They might have the 2 best quarterbacks in college football, Hugh. Dante Moore for Oregon, Fernando Mendoza for Indiana. The NFL loves both those guys. You'll see them in the league sooner or later. Offense is both clicking, and I think it's going to be a really well-played major game. Oregon's in contention for the best team in college football, but I think Indiana's got a shot in this one.
Who is that remarkable receiver for the Ducks? The guy caught everything in the one game I saw.
Decorian Moore. Decorian Moore is a true freshman from the state of Texas that they won a big recruiting battle for, and we've seen it, Hugh. Ryan Williams at Alabama last year, true freshman at receiver, awesome. Jeremiah Smith last year for Ohio State, true freshman, awesome. These receivers can come in and be great right away, and Decorian Moore is.
All right, so second game, because I got to get to Ohio State and Illinois because General Mel is my friend. I've been making fun of the Illini forever, and we got to get to that. But what's your second game?
So you want? Can I give you an NFL game, Hugh? Can I give you an NFL game that I think people will be excited for? This Sunday night, Detroit at Kansas City. We've been talking about the Chiefs. They're 2-3 now, but Detroit is 4-1. They lost their opener. Since then, they've scored an average of 40 points per game. But here's the story here. Aiden Hutchinson, former number 2 overall pick in the draft, former Michigan star, broke his leg last year on October 13th. On October 13th last year. He's back. Sunday is October 12th. So he's been playing all year. It's basically the 1-year anniversary of him breaking his leg. He has 5 sacks. He's among the leaders in the NFL. It's a great story of coming back from a devastating injury. And I think Detroit lost its opener, and people were kind of out. They look to me as good as anybody in the league. The Philadelphia Eagles just lost on Thursday. I really like the Lions as a Super Bowl contender. And anytime you get to test yourself against Patrick Mahomes, that's good.
Aiden Hutchinson terrorized the Browns. Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's go to the game, Ohio State and the Illini. What do you think, Doug?
Yeah. So listen, I was high on Illinois coming into the season. I picked Illinois to make the playoff coming into this season, Hugh. I don't know about this. I'm not sure Illinois' defense can stop Ohio State. Julian Sand, the Ohio State quarterback, is the best in the country against the blitz. Illinois has lost its best defensive player, Xavier Scott, for the year. Illinois does have a really good veteran quarterback in Luke Altmaier, and Ohio State's defense has been great against young quarterbacks, but I think Illinois might be in trouble. Brett Bielema, my Illinois coach, great coach. He's going to do everything he can. Weird substitutions. Look for weird formations. He's going to try to junk up this game and slow it down to stay in it, but I think Ohio State's too talented. Ohio State favored by 14. I have Ohio State by about 21-28.
Oh, now your old buddy, Stephen Means, with whom you used to work when you were at Cleveland.com, has a headline over at the Cleveland.com, and I don't know if he wrote the headline, but it's very. Ryan Day is on the verge of his Ohio State quarterback masterpiece, and he's ready to unleash it. Now, that's saying a lot. A masterpiece for Ryan Day when you're up against the guys he's produced. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so Julian Sayin really does fit a lot of what Ryan Day wants in a quarterback, and he's reached this point quickly. So he is processing, he is thinking on a high level, he has a very quick release, he's very accurate. And you think, along the way, C.J. Stroud is a tremendous college quarterback and has been really good in the NFL too. But Julian Sayin is kind of like the next in the line. And the big thing about Julian Sayin so far is they unleashed him last week. Ryan Day said that we're going to do that against Minnesota, and they did. And you saw it from Julian Sayin. But they're going to play it smart with this guy because first-year starter, and they want him ready in January for the playoff, but he's checked every box so far.
Okay, I got 1 minute. I watched last week. Tate's going to be a first-round draft choice. It's obvious to me.
Tremendous.
Where is Brandon Innes? What has happened to him?
Yeah. It's just hard. Like Jeremiah Smith is the best receiver in college football. Carnell Tate is right there among the next best. And Brandon Innes, their third receiver. It's just hard to get him involved in the offense. So he blocks. They've been saying a lot of good things about him. He's a captain. That kind of thing matters. So I don't know if he'll come along, but the thing, Hugh, that they're doing a really good job of is that they are getting the ball to their best guys. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate get the ball. If you have great guys, feed them.
Well said. I will be watching Oregon, Indiana at 3:30. Don't know if I'm going to watch on Sunday night because the Lions already beat the Browns, so I'm still mad at them. But it's a good Friday football forecast from Doug Lesmerises.
Let me tell you this, just real quick. Browns are beating the Steelers, Hugh. It's a 5-point spread. It doesn't make any sense. The Steelers coming off a bye week, the Browns coming from Europe. This is exactly the kind of game the Browns win. Browns win on Sunday. Mark it down.
Oh, I am. Mark it down Friday. I'm stunned, but I hope you're right. Goodness, we could use a lift. That would actually put them back in contention in the AFC North. Follow Doug at Doug Lesmerises on X. And go and Google Bill and Doug Show Substack. You'll get there. You'll thank me when you subscribe. It's a lot of fun. The poet laureate of the Hugh Hewitt Show is Tarzana Joe. Joe, we have a new affiliate in Martinsville, Virginia. Martinsville, Virginia is at 1370 AM, Talk of the Town. So they've never heard you before. Don't blow your debut in Martinsville.
Well, this is a Virginia poem, Hugh. Because this happens so often in modern politics. We get caught up in Jay Jones and the texts, and we forget about Jay Jones's policies, which make our George Gascon here in Los Angeles look like Elliot Ness. And so that's what I've been thinking about this week. With all the skills at my command, I've struggled hard to understand just how this world became so strange and what occurred to make it change. Why would the spirit of the times assess no punishment for crimes, and intellectuals agree that violent felons should walk free? It makes no sense to me. Why would a person change direction if there's no process for correction? There must have been some oversight. Ideas don't change overnight. And so I look back to the schools, which I think must be run by fools. Ask teachers what began our fall. There is no discipline at all. Back in the day, we feared detention and other things I will not mention, but all those teachers have retired. Fail a student and you're fired. We turn our eyes and pull the shades. There is no consequence, no grades. And if, my friends, you've never learned success and punishment are earned, why would you sanction or support someone else's day in court? So now I know, with all my knowing, God is good and Jesus saves. And when change comes, it comes in ripples, small inconsequential ripples, not in monumental waves. That's Change by Tarzana Joe.
Well, I hope the people of Virginia change course because the polls have Spanberger, the Invisible, and the Frozen beating Winsome Earl Sears by 4 points. But Jay Jones cannot win. I mean, I don't think he can win. TarzanaJoe.com is where you'll find that poem. What's that title, Joe?
Change.
change. And don't change from what I just told you, TarzanaJoe.com. And Joe, you can get a poem via the website. And that's what we're doing now rather than email. We're saying go to the website and get need a poem. You hit the button. Rates are reasonable. How's traffic been since the website reopened?
Oh, very good. Very good. I hope I didn't lose anybody. If I did, go back to the site. We're open for business again. Thank you.
TarzanaJoe.com. TarzanaJoe.com. I'm not even going to give you the email anymore. Go find the Need a Poem button at TarzanaJoe.com. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Hugh.
Coming back with Dr. Larry Arnn, the Hillsdale Dialogue. He's back after a couple of weeks off. You heard him speak at Charlie Kirk's memorial service. We'll talk to Dr. Arnn about Charlie and that amazing event 2 weeks ago now, and about the other things going on in the world. Do not miss the next hour. It's the Hillsdale Dialogue, all things Hillsdale at hillsdale.edu.